Hi, I'm Ravi. I'm a longtime practitioner of the spiritual path, and today I want to share some insights around spirituality. So the topic for today is alignment, and I've been fascinated by this term alignment ever since I kind of encountered it in some writings of Steve Pavlina, a personal development blogger. But I also noticed that the word came up a lot, not just in personal development circles, but also in business management circles, business management theory books that I was reading. And I thought it was really interesting that the same term applied to personal development work as well as to business strategy work. And I was just doing some research with ChatGPT, and it told me that it actually originated in the business side and then moved over to the personal growth side after that because they found it a useful term. So, why is it that this term seems to apply both in business strategy and personal development, which seems to have nothing to do with each other? So, I think the reason why is because it's a great word for describing the relationship between parts and the whole of a complex system. A complex system is aligned when all its parts are moving in the same direction, and it's misaligned if its different parts are moving in different directions. Then you have kind of a problem. So it might be clear why that's true in a business setting because businesses have different departments, and we want to make sure that all the departments are incentivized to move towards the same goal. But why is it true in a personal development setting or spirituality setting? Because first of all, each person is not just their own individual person, but is part of all these larger structures, and they need to be aligned to them in order to progress themselves as well, the whole. And also, there's also the idea that if you look inside yourself, you could actually think of yourself as a multiplicity in some sense. There are schools like parts work, internal family systems, or just the broader idea of the unconscious, subconscious mind that hold that there are actually different constituent parts within the human psyche that can be at odds with the conscious mind or with the odds with each other. And then you can have not only the concept of different business departments being aligned with each other, but different parts of your own psyche being aligned with each other. And that can, yeah, be instructive to try to find alignments between different parts of your psyche. Um, so let me give you a few examples of what this looks like in a more concrete way, so you can see, yeah, what alignment means in a more concrete sense. So one situation I came across in the business world is between sales and technical support departments. So sales departments, they're incentivized to sell more of the software product and close more software deals and generate more revenue. And so to do that, they might throw in all sorts of different sweet deals and different promises they make to the customer in order to get the signature on the contract. So they might say, "Hey, if you sign the contract, we'll throw in all this extra stuff, extra custom builds and custom implementation and things like that." And then on the support side is the side that actually needs to take the customer's problems that they have once they're actually using the software. So by this point, sales is off closing other deals, and support has to actually deal with the day-to-day work of making sure the software is working properly. So if sales throws in a lot of extra custom custom sweeteners into the deal, then support might have trouble keeping up with the flow of all the things that sales is giving. So it's kind of a misalignment between the departments because sales is incentivized to just close deals. Support doesn't have that same incentive. They just need to keep up with the flow um, of new issues, and they're overwhelmed by all the things that sales is throwing in. So in a pathological system that has this happening, you might just keep feeding the sales department because they generate revenue, and then just blame support and keep blaming support until the support department breaks down. One executive in one company that I worked with tried to foster collaboration between these two departments. They would give special support for the deals that the sales team was working on, and then use that as leverage to draw stricter boundaries around support's capacities later. So the two departments got in more alignment around the idea that you need to, give support to sales when they need it, but also have good boundaries around what support's able to do. So in that way, the two departments can get in better alignment. Here's another example from internal alignment. So I found in my life that everything I do has to align with the spiritual life, and that's been true ever since I got on the spiritual path about 15 years ago. And if there's a part of my life that doesn't feel like it contributes to spirituality, then I eventually feel unenthusiastic about it and like it's not a long-term fit. And if something feels like it's attracting for my sense of spirituality, then I don't feel that I have all this resistance to it. So spirituality is kind of like my highest value, and everything has to fall into alignment around that. And if an area of my life is not aligning with that, then uh, then it kind of falls by the wayside or doesn't happen. But that can lead to dysfunction if there are important areas of my life that I'm not tending to in a way because I can't see how to integrate them. So that's been a big source of my adjusting misalignments and alignments over the years. So, for example, one example is the idea of masculine energy, which I've been exploring recently, and I might do some videos about. So, I think there's a tendency for a lot of spiritual men um, in this day and age to see the kind of negative effects of masculine energy under the label of toxic masculinity. They see all the ways that masculinity has been used to hurt other people and kind of say, well, I don't want any part of that because it's not aligned with my spiritual vision. And then so they kind of renounce this more masculine part of themselves. And then as a result, they lose touch with their own sense of vitality and competence and power that um, that masculine energy can be associated with. So I think one key for me has been to see why this is a part of the divine energy and how it's aligned with the divine energy to cultivate that part of myself. So again, I'll be talking about this more. I might talk about this more in future videos. But yeah, so every area of your life, you have to see how does it align with your highest values, and if it's not aligned, you need to find a way to figure out how it can be aligned because otherwise, it's just not going to happen if you feel that there's this values conflict between areas of your life. Another area we see alignment and misalignment is in politics. So one over the last like 10 years or so, we've seen a lot of different alignments between different groups and different parties that has been surprising somewhat sometimes. So after the 2016 elections, or around the time of the 2016 elections, we saw that a lot of the national security establishment, which had traditionally been associated with Republicans, actually lined up behind the Democrats because they were concerned with the stability of the international system. And they thought that Donald Trump would destabilize it. And so that was a surprising realignment for a lot of people that national security, instead of going with the Republicans, would go behind the Democrats. And then another realignment happened in the 2024 election when the technology magnates who had long been perceived as on the liberal side felt that they finally had enough grievances to switch side to the Republicans and aligned with Trump. So again, you've probably seen a lot of different surprising realignments in your maybe your network of people where somebody who's seen really liberal says one day, I'm actually conservative now, or somebody who's conservative becomes a liberal. So there are all these ways that our political beliefs and political structures can cause this continual process of alignment and realignment. So the basic idea here is different parts of the system going in different directions, and alignment is how do you figure out how to get them to go in the same direction. Um, and what's the spiritual principle here? The spiritual principle is that the universe, or the manifested universe, is made up of all these different diverse energies, and they all have their own unique potentiality and purpose. So think of the energy behind each person as a different kind of spiritual vibration, and there are all these different people, and we need to figure out how all these people can work together towards different common goals. And so it's a big challenge. Different countries express different energies. Different styles of music or different energies, different different art forms, different political parties, different viewpoints, different ideologies. These are all the energies that make up the universe, and somehow we need to generate not just order but harmony. So in the Life Divine, Sri Aurobindo's kind of metaphysical magnum opus, he talks about how harmony is the highest principle of, or one of the highest principles of universal law, that eventually all these energies are not just going to be clashing with each other and conflicting with each other, jazz versus classical, and uh, different countries fighting different countries, but there'll be a harmonious whole, a harmonious interplay of all these different energies together. So all the different nations on Earth will have their own unique value systems and economic niches, but go on to produce a greater whole, or all the different talents of all the different people in the world will be able to go into the economy and generate an ordered economic system where everybody can contribute their own talents without feeling like they're compromising themselves in a wrong position. So in a harmony, all these energies can express themselves without conflict. Um, but that's the end goal, that's the end state, and it's not the current state in the human realm. The contents of the human realm are not yet sorted out into this harmony. So actually, we're in this process of a lot of different misalignments and disharmonies, and we want to get to a greater state of alignment and harmony where things are moving in the same direction or in compatible directions. Um, so since we're in this state of misalignment or disharmony, we want to get to the state of harmony by resolving these misalignments in our lives. So when we find a misalignment, we figure out what needs to be done to get things aligned, and that leads to a better outcome. It leads us to this closer to one step closer to this eventual endpoint of harmonious being together of all the different energies. So let's go over a couple of tips for how you actually do this. How do we find these misalignments and get to alignments? So the first tip is finding vibrational resonance. So I've talked about energies here, and maybe I'll talk about this in a future video, but one really important part of the spiritual path for me is sensing different energetic qualities of the different aspects of reality. So if it's as common with people, like you can tell if one person's very calm and peaceful and another person's very high energy. They have a difference in their personality, which you can kind of call an energetic difference. So when you feel into the kind of vibrational state of one person, you feel into the vibrational state of the high energy person. They're not quite the same. You can tell that there's this energetic difference between them. And so you can do that at the scale of any entity to find out where there's vibrational resonance between you and that entity, to find out where there's alignment or misalignment. So more specifically, let's say you're working at a company, you can feel the overall energy of a company by kind of feeling into it with the same energetic process and feel, do I have the energy that this company has? And if you do, then you might be aligned with them well. And if you don't, then you might not be aligned with them. Um, so yeah, if you can learn to feel the energetic qualities of the different companies or different organizations you work with or different people in your life, you can feel for this vibrational resonance at the vibration level between you, to find out where there is resonance and where there might be disharmony or non-harmony or non-resonance that does not indicate alignment. So a second principle for going from misalignment to alignment is that in a lot of cases, even when there is initial alignment, there might be misalignment that eventually pops up and you have to kind of move on. Um, so while we're in this state where we're in this process of working through alignments and misalignments, there's going to be a lot of cases where you're aligned with something or someone for a time, and then you fall out of alignment because the karma that between you has been resolved. And leading up to that point, a very common thing is for more conflict to pop up, where things have been going well, and then you suddenly start to learn that, well, actually they see things one way and that you see things another way, even though there had been this previous harmony and consonance. So that doesn't necessarily negate the fact that you were in alignment in an earlier part of your journey, but it doesn't mean that you have to be aligned forever. Um, yeah, you could. So when that alignment starts to pop up, don't be attached to the situation, but just accept that there's gonna be this process of separation as you learn that this is misaligned and make the new choice to separate and to find the next aligned opportunity. So another great principle from Steve Pavlina is the idea that um, sometimes you have to release something that you're misaligned with before you find the thing that you're aligned with, and that kind of creates this energy vacuum that the new aligned thing will be able um, to fill in. I actually both of these examples I found in Steve Pavlina's group itself. So I was in his personal development group for many years and felt really aligned with it. And then towards the end, I started to feel a little less aligned, and then got in some small senses of not big conflict of yelling and shouting, but just slight conflicts and slight disagreements. And by the end, I could tell I'm just not aligned with the situation anymore, and I left. But it was a great experience while I was in there. And by leaving that program when I did, I got to experience some other online communities where I felt more aligned with for my next stage of my journey. So yeah, it illustrates all those principles of allowing alignment for a time, misalignment pops up, but you might have to release that former alignment before you can get to the next aligned opportunity. So another principle for going from misalignment to alignment is to consciously and explicitly state your goals versus doing that only unconsciously and implicitly. So a lot of the time in relationships between people or relationships between entities, we don't define what our goals are or what our end states are, and just kind of enter into these um, patterns or ways of behaving where um, we're not really defining what we're trying to do, and then there are implicit expectations that each party has about what the other person should do because of their own assumptions and their own previous ideas, and then they start to break down because nobody is agreeing on how um, one should operate. Um, so yeah, if you can consciously come to a statement about your goals, then that makes it that much easier for everybody to say, wow, those goals are my goals. Let's align with each other and work to accomplish them. Um, so uh, yeah, that's why it's really common practice for any business to kind of explicitly state their goals in their mission statement, and then you can see whether you're aligned with that company. So, like we were saying, vibrational resonance is one level, but this kind of explicit statement of goals is another level. Elon Musk's SpaceX is trying to get to Mars. So you say, "Wow, I'd really love to help humanity get to Mars. I feel really aligned with that." Or another person might say, well, I don't really care that much about getting to Mars, and I myself am one of those people is not that enthusiastic about going to Mars. So I wouldn't feel really called to work for SpaceX. That's just a misalignment between me and SpaceX. And because we consciously have our own goals, my goal is spiritual development, and it's not as focused on getting to Mars. I can say, well, because they've explicitly stated their goal and I've explicitly stated my goal, we can just compare them on paper really easily to see if there's alignment there. Um, so in another case, another company might just have this vague idea that, we're kind of doing engineering and we're kind of building products, but no strong sense of what they're doing. And I might say, well, I have worked in technology and in engineering, so maybe I could help, but I'm not really clear. Do I just want a 9 to 5 job or am I really going to pitch in? Suppose the company starts expecting all its engineers to put in 100-hour weeks because they want to be really devoted to some mission. And I'm kind of expecting a 9 to 5 job, and then but we never really talk about it. There's going to eventually be this conflict where you say, why aren't you working 100-hour weeks? And I said, well, I just want to be here for a 9 to 5 job. So the sooner you can kind of flesh that out by explicitly stating your goals, the better everybody can get on the same page. So the last point for going from misalignment to alignment is systemic thinking, or if you want to view it from a spiritual perspective, you can think of it as being cosmic awareness. Um, so to be in alignment effectively in your life, the broader picture you can have, the more effective you're going to be at being aligned with the greater goals of yourself and the universe. So if you have a really narrow view that just sees your role as um, just doing just doing the job that's just in front of you without considering the larger impact that the organization has on the industry and the country and the world, then you're just going to have that much worse of a time feeling truly aligned with what you're doing, the actions you're taking. Um, so, yeah, the more context you have, the more you understand all the different parts, the better you can understand how you fit in. So that's why the thing is, it's hard to have a completely systematic view right at the outset. So you're always going to start when you're maybe at the beginning of your career in a position of limited information and you have to make a choice. Well, do I work at this company or do I work at this company? This is my current understanding, so I'll work at this company doing this job. But as you progress in your knowledge of the world and your knowledge of how all the different parts of the world fit together, you can kind of form a broader map of where you can locate yourself in regards to that broader landscape, um, to figure out how you align with things that match your own deepest sense of values. And I think some people that may be more kind of rational or logical thinkers would view this in terms of systems. But I think a lot of spiritual people do this just at the level of cosmic awareness and being aware of the total scope of energies that are in play. Um, so just as a spiritual person might start with being aware of the energies in their local relationships, eventually they might grow to be able to understand the energies in play in whole companies or whole countries or the entire world system as a whole, and be able to better slot themselves into where exactly do I fit in this broad landscape of energy. Yeah, so those were my thoughts for today. If you thought this was interesting, please like and subscribe, and I'll be back next week with more insights. Yeah, thanks for listening. Bye.